Millionaire witnesses humble maid defend sick imam. Her shocking act changes everything. In a bustling city wrapped in the chill of autumn, a single moment unfurled into an unforgettable whirlwind. The air crackled with anticipation, a mixture of laughter and tension. People flocked to the downtown plaza, their phones raised like shields. Everyone's eyes were glued to the spectacle unfolding just a few feet away at the local hospital. It all started when a humble maid, wearing a faded uniform and a determined expression, stepped into the fray. With each second, whispers swirled like leaves caught in a whirlwind. The wealthy millionaire known for his philanthropy, Mr. Carlton, was there, his expensive suit and polished shoes contrasting against the humble maid's worn-out attire. He watched, his face a mask of intrigue, as a sick mother pleaded desperately for help. Friends and strangers alike held their breaths. This was more than a mere confrontation. It felt like a collision of worlds, rich and poor colliding in a rowdy spectacle. Suddenly, the maid stepped forward, her eyes only for the frail woman in distress. There was a fierce light in her gaze, a spark of defiance. "You can't take her away. She's all I have," she shouted, her voice quaking with emotion. A palpable silence fell over the crowd, hearts pounding like drums. Who was this woman? Why did she care so fiercely? No one knew where her courage came from, especially standing before a titan like Mr. Carlton. The tension thickened. Rumors flew. Was she in trouble? Did she have a hidden agenda? Eyebrows raised as people began murmuring. This wasn't just a standoff. It was a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. Everything hinged on that fragile exchange of words. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Back on the street, the maid's voice rose again, shaking with desperation. She deserves to be treated with kindness, not dismissed. Gasps wove through the crowd. Mr. Carlton stepped forward. The nervous chatter buzzed around him, a palpable cocktail of shock and anticipation intermingled. Did he really have empathy in that heart of gold? Or was he simply taken aback by this unexpected challenge? As the standoff continued, the maid's resolve ignited a fire in the onlookers, inspiring murmurs of support. People nodded and whispered promises. A connection throbbed in the air. She was stirring something deep within them. But just as the tension reached its height, silence reigned again. Would Mr. Carlton let the maid's plea fall on deaf ears? Or was this humble heroism about to unveil a deeper layer of humanity, in a realm where money spoke louder than words? As the crowd held its collective breath, an unforeseen twist danced on the edge of reality, teasing answers yet to unfold. The tension was electric, every watchful gaze fixated on Mr. Carlton. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, stirring a ripple of hope among the crowd. Could he be moved by her passion? The murmurs intensified, anticipation thickening the air until it felt almost suffocating. Then he spoke. "You're emotional," he said, his voice unexpectedly soft, yet steady. "But emotions can obscure the truth." The crowd shifted, a collective intake of breath followed by a puzzled hush. The maid, undeterred, took a step closer. Her heart raced, but she refused to show fear. "Are you saying her life doesn't matter?" she challenged, her brow knit with determination. "Her illness is as real as any dollar in your bank. You can't dismiss that." The millionaire's gaze hardened as he squared his shoulders. "I'm not dismissing anyone. I'm trying to understand the situation." Rushing in blindly, he trailed off, as if weighing his words carefully. It was a calculated response, aimed at diffusing the emotional turmoil swirling around them. Unbeknownst to everyone, among the crowd stood a middle-aged man, his hands buried deep in the pockets of his weathered coat. His eyes glinted with recognition as he processed the scene. He leaned closer to an older woman beside him, murmuring, "That maid, she's from my neighborhood. I know her story." Her brow furrowed, curiosity pulling her in tighter. The maid's eyes, locked onto Mr. Carlton's, brimmed with unshed tears. "What do you want?" she demanded, voice trembling yet strong. Do you want proof? I'll show you how much she means to me. A ripple of sympathetic murmurs rolled through the assembly. The mother's frail form trembled slightly, the weight of her sickness catching up with her. Please, her faint whisper reached everyone, but especially the maid, who caught her breath, feeling a deeper urgency swell within her chest. Then, something unexpected happened. The ambulance's siren wailed in the distance, drawing nearer. It cut through the battlefield of emotions, shaking loose the tension like autumn leaves in a gust. The maid darted a look towards the sound. In that instant, something shifted in the crowd. They realized time was not on their side. Look, one person shouted, pointing. Help is coming. But that sound, the siren, only churned more anxiety through the air. Mr. Carlton's expression transformed, uncertainty morphing into profound contemplation. What did he truly feel? Beneath the facade of his wealth and power, did compassion spark? He glanced at the maid, whose fierce resolve seemed to reach into the very depths of his soul. Then, before anyone could process, Mr. Carlton took a step back, drawing a deep breath as if preparing to dive into the icy waters of the unknown. I'll make you a deal, he finally said, his voice steady yet laced with a hint of doubt. If you can prove your bond with her, I might reconsider. But if not, you have to let the professionals do their job. His challenge hung in the air, a double-edged sword. Murmurs erupted, fueled by disbelief and anger. Did she even have what it would take to convince a man like him? The maid's heart raced, a whirlwind of fear and determination filling her. She had one chance to change everything, but would she sink or swim? In the ensuing silence, emotions simmered, and she felt the weight of countless eyes upon her. Every heartbeat thundered in her ears as she took a deep breath, ready to fight for her friend. But what could she say to break through the walls of skepticism? As she opened her mouth to speak, the sound of the ambulance doors screeching open filled the air, sending a thrilling shock through the crowd. Would she take the plunge into the depths of vulnerability? Or would she falter, leaving the sick mother at the mercy of fate? With everything hanging in the balance, the next words out of her mouth could tip the scales in unimaginable directions. As the ambulance crew burst through the crowd, the maid's pulse quickened, a storm of dread and urgency swirling within her. The paramedics, clad in bright uniforms, rushed toward the frail woman who had become the focal point of this whirlwind. Her heart twisted at the sight their professional faces, so calm, stood in stark contrast to her own chaotic emotions. One paramedic, a tall man with soft, quick hands, knelt beside the sick mother. We're here to help you, he said gently, assessing her condition. The maid watched, feeling as though every breath escaped her lungs like wisps of smoke. Would they be able to save her? Mr. Carlton stood at the edge of the chaos, but his eyes were locked onto the maid, each moment stretching, hanging between them like a tenuous thread. The crowd leaned forward, breaths bated, sensing an invisible charge in the air. What would she do next? The maid knew time was slipping through her fingers. The paramedics were focused, yet she felt the weight of their effort, the keen awareness that they needed more than just medicine. They needed hope, a reason to fight. Her name is Rose, she exclaimed, her voice slicing through the murmurs. Rose is the sweetest, most caring person I know. She dedicated her life to others. If you could see her spirit, you wouldn't question it. Proof. You're going to need proof, Mr. Carlton interjected, his voice filtering through the thrum of voices. The dismissive tone grated against the fervor of the moment, testing the maid's resolve. Proof, the word echoed, sinking into her thoughts. What could she offer? Suddenly, a glimmer ignited in her mind. She dug into her pocket. Her fingers grazed a crumpled paper, her heart fluttering. The letter. It was a note Rose had given her just last week, filled with love and light even in darkness. Though its words were faintly scrawled, their message was ferocious. Here. She unfolded it in a rush, the paper trembling in her hands. This is from Rose. Her own words saying what we mean to each other. She is a fighter, and our bond matters. With shaky hands she held the letter toward Mr. Carlton, her eyes fierce. The crowd leaned forward, breathless, eyes darting between her and the millionaire. For a moment, surprise flickered across his polished exterior. He moved forward almost instinctively, drawn by the authenticity radiating from her. As he read, the chaos faded into a low hum, the words becoming the lifeblood circulating between them. If I fall, I hope to fall into the arms of those I love. The maid's voice broke, overshadowing the sounds of sirens and murmurs. Tamar. Carlton's expression shifted, a crack appearing in his hardened resolve. What if she doesn't wake up? He murmured, almost to himself. What if this isn't enough? That moment of vulnerability hung uncomfortably. The crowd, once frothing with uncertainty, held its breath, drawn tightly into the fragile hope binding the two together. Through a fog of desperation, the maid stepped closer. It will be enough. Her voice trembled, but she pressed on, courage surging through her. If you believe in the connections we forge, in the love we share, then you must see that's the real truth. But just as Mr. Carlton opened his mouth, the mother stirred, a pained groan escaping. Your heart, she managed to whisper, eyes fluttering open. You believe in love, don't you, sweetheart? The tension shifted, catching everyone off guard, the crowd gasping collectively. In that heartbeat, hope ignited. The maid's heart raced as she locked eyes with Mr. Carlton, her breath hitching. Would he finally understand? Would he take the leap of faith? The relieved murmur spread through the crowd, but all the while, a darker shadow lurked. Would the truth locked in Rose's heart be enough to sway a man like Mr. Carlton? As the paramedics moved swiftly around them, one question clawed into existence. What truths lay buried beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? The tension escalated as Mr. Carlton stared at the maid, his steely demeanor beginning to falter. A whisper of uncertainty danced across his face, and the murmurs of the crowd rose, filling the air with anticipation. Love, he echoed softly, almost incredulously, as if the word was a riddle he had yet to solve. The maid clutched the crumpled letter tighter, her heart racing, desperate for him to feel the weight of those words. Could he grasp the essence of what she was saying? But before anything could solidify, the frail mother twitched again, her eyes blinking open wider. The paramedics were ready, adjusting their equipment, but something else was brewing in the charged air. The maid could see it, the flicker of life returning, a heartbeat returning to the chaos. Rose, the mother's voice cracked as she looked at the maid, her brows furrowing in confusion. Where's Rose? At that moment all eyes were on the maid, the air thickening with expectancy. As panic clawed at her throat, she answered, she's coming. She'll be here soon. But would she? Rose was fading into shadows no one could see. They couldn't bear to acknowledge itmr. Carlton's gaze sharpened, the glint of determination cutting through the uncertainty. You care so deeply about her, he said finally, the weight of his words hanging heavy. What if I told you I could help her? What if I could bring her the care she truly needs? What are you saying? The maid's heart raced. Her thoughts spiraled. Was he willing to help? At what cost? Suddenly, Mr. Carlton looked less like the hardened businessman everyone knew and more like a man confronting his own humanity. The walls he built around himself were eroding. I can fund medical treatments, international specialists. Whatever it takes, he rushed on, as if revealing his plan could shift the atmosphere. But I need assurance. I don't know, something to hold on to. Her spirit is the assurance. The maid exclaimed, her voice raw with emotion. She's more than a charity case. She's family. You can't measure love with money. A flash of anger surged through Carlton, but it melted into regret as he considered her words. Then tell me, why should I care about this stranger? Because every single day she cares for others. The maid's voice was fierce, cracking through layers of resistance. She's given everything to those who are broken. If you could just— a sudden cacophony interrupted her, the sirens cutting through the atmosphere with a shrill cry as the ambulance doors slid open. Crowds parted. The scene turned chaotic as more paramedics hurried to assist, bringing stretchers and equipment. Just as it seemed the moment of connection would slip away, Rose's moans filled the air once more, louder and more desperate than before. Help me. I can't breathe. The world spiraled, and the maid felt the ground shift beneath her. She took a step closer, fully expecting Mr. Carlton to retreat, but he held his ground. Take her to the hospital, he ordered brusquely, surprising everyone and even himself. But looming over the chaotic scene, a new danger crept in as a figure appeared from the corner of the crowd. The maid's heart sank. The stewardess from earlier, her eyes dark and foreboding. Anger radiated from her, And it soon became clear she had been watching the entire exchange unfold. With a haughty laugh, she stepped forward, anticipation cloaking her like a second skin. "You need to listen, dearie," her voice dripped with venom. "This little charade of love won't save her. What you think you're entering into, it's not a fairy tale." The crowd quieted once more, uneasy murmurs echoing through the throng as Mr. Carlton's attention shifted. A flicker of doubt danced in his expression. What was this woman suggesting? In that charged moment, the maid felt the walls of her world collapse. Would the love between her and Rose withstand the storms brewing? What dangerous truths would the stewardess reveal? With the stakes climbing higher, silence enveloped them, threatening to swallow the tenuous hope alive between the maid and Mr. Carlton. The next move dictated everything. What dark secrets would surface, and could love conquer all in this labyrinth of desperation? The stewardess advanced with measured steps, her voice dripping with disdain. "Do you really think you can save her with just money and sentiment? Love? It's a nice word, but here it doesn't mean a thing." The maid clenched the letter, its edges digging into her palm, trying to shield herself from the venom in the woman's words. "You don't know her. You don't know the strength she has." She shot back defiantly. Mr. Carlton shifted his weight, his brow furrowing deeper as the stewardess continued. "Strength? Love? Those won't count when the real world comes crashing down. There's more to this than you think." "What are you talking about?" the maid demanded, frustration bubbling to the surface. The crowd, still and expectant, felt the tension crackling in the air. But the stewardess only smiled, a chilling curve of her lips. "Do you know how many people have made promises like yours, sweetheart? They wither away like smoke. I've seen it 100 times. She gestured dismissively toward Mr. Carlton. "You think this man has a heart? You think he cares?" Mr. Carlton's expression hardened, tears of anger pooling in his eyes. "Enough. I'm attempting to help." "Help?" The stewardess laughed, the sound a sharp edge cutting through the air. "You don't even realize how entangled the truth is. What you'll uncover." She let the sentence hang, a challenge lingering in the silence. The maid gulped, dread flooding her body. "What are you hiding?" The stewardess leaned closer, her voice low and conspiratorial. "You don't want to dig too deep. Some things are better ignored. But if you insist." Suddenly an abrupt gasp cut through the palpable tension. Rose's mother jerked as if awakening from a deep slumber, her eyes wide. What are you doing here?" she rasped, fear edging her tone. The maid rushed to her side, holding her hand tightly as tears threatened to spill. "Rose is coming. We're going to get her help." "Help?" The mother's gaze darted, panic tinted with a hint of recognition. No, you don't understand. The stewardess, she's part of it. You have to be careful." "What do you mean?" the maid urged, her stomach nodding as the implication settled into that moment. Rose's faint cries echoed again, slicing through the tension like a knife. "Help me. I'm scared." The maid's heart shattered. "I'm here, Rose. I'm coming. Get her out of here," Mr. Carlton shouted, his authority snapping the crowd back to action as paramedics prepared to lift Rose onto the stretcher. But as they began, the stewardess positioned herself between them and the stretcher, an insidious grin plastered across her face. "Do you really think this will end well?" she taunted, looking directly at Mr. Carlton. "You're all walking into a trap. That's the truth you're ignoring." The maid's pulse raced, her thoughts spiraling as she attempted to piece together the ominous threads weaving around them. "What trap? What are you talking about?" The stewardess leaned closer to the maid with a sly smile. "A web of lies, my dear. One that your precious Rose might be tangled in already. And if you aren't careful, you could find yourself in deep waters." The crowd gasped collectively, eyes darting between the maid, the stewardess, and Mr. Carlton. The air thickened with suspense, the weight of her words hanging ominously above them. Suddenly, a siren wailed in the distance, the metallic sound gnawing at the edges of the scene, echoing the urgency that spilled from their hearts. The moment stretched, each second a fragile thread. As the tension peaked, the maid's thoughts raced with possibilities. Could this chaos be the prelude to a truth that would tear them apart instead of bringing them together? With dark secrets slipping through her fingers, the maid pondered her next move under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Would she risk it all to save Rose, or could the truth destroy everything she held dear? What revelations lurked in the shadows? ready to pounce. Could love truly conquer even in the deepest darkness? The stewardess straightened, her smile widening as though relishing the chaos she had ignited. Are you willing to gamble your future on a lie? Her voice was smooth silk, wrapping around the maid like a shroud. Get out of the way. The maid's shout echoed, fear giving way to desperation. She tightened her grip on Rose's mother's hand, feeling the tremors of panic pulsating through her palm. Those around them leaned in closer, drawn by the magnetic tension, the air thick with unspoken apprehension. Mr. Carlton stepped forward, fists clenched at his side, eyeing the stewardess like a predator assessing its prey. Move aside. We have to get her out of here now. Each word was charged, shot through with a determination that shook the onlookers from their stupor. But the stewardess merely tilted her head, her expression a mixture of pity and amusement. You thought it would be so simple, didn't you? Rescue the damsel in distress? But this isn't a fairy tale, sweetheart. This is a reality you're not prepared to face. Reality? The maid felt rage boiling in her chest. What do you know about reality? You hide behind your uniform and your lies. With every word, the crowd's murmur intensified, disbelief hanging heavy in the air. Eyes flickered back to Rose, trapped in her own nightmare just a few feet away. The minute trembling cries of "Please help me" sent shivers down the maid's spine. The stewardess leaned closer, an almost conspiratorial whisper escaping her lips. Think about it. How many people were involved in this farce? Your precious Rose didn't just fall sick. She was dragged into this. Confusion twisted in the maid's gut. Dragged into what? What are you talking about? Into a web, the stewardess replied, her smile turning sinister. One spun intricately with deceit and manipulation. If you dive in headfirst, you might drown, dear. You're bluffing, the maid hissed, but doubt nipped at her heels, igniting the fire of fear. There was something deeper lurking here, something more sinister. Suddenly, a voice broke through the tension, sharp and commanding. Enough. This isn't a game. It was Rose's mother, her voice powerful yet trembling. You don't understand what you're meddling with. The stewardess straightened, clearly taken aback. What do you mean? Rose is more than a pawn in your game, she continued, tears pooling in her eyes as she looked at her daughter. She's the key and you know it. A collective gasp rose from the crowd, spiraling into whispers as they exchanged glances, the implications hanging tantalizingly in the air. Key to what? Mr. Carlton demanded, confusion etched across his features. What are you talking about? Everything, Rose's mother stammered. The money, the deception, it ties back to her. There are others, people who want her for their own ends. The stewardess's facade cracked ever so slightly, an unsettling flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. You'd best tread carefully, she warned, though the command lacked its previous strength. With every passing second, time felt suspended, like the world had momentarily paused to hold its breath. The sirens grew louder, a cruel reminder of the urgency that clawed at their throats. The maid took a step forward, her resolve hardening. What do we have to do? She demanded, her heart racing with a new determination. She was ready to plunge into whatever darkness awaited, risking everything for Rose. But the moment she spoke, a dark figure emerged from the shadows beyond the crowd, drawing all attention like a magnet. Gasps rose anew, disbelief etched on every face. Who are you? The maid's voice quivered with a blend of fear and defiance. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face she recognized all too well, someone from the past, entwined in the very shadows they were now forced to confront. Fate has played its hand, my dear, the newcomer said, voice smooth as oil yet ominously cold. And it's time you see what you've been hiding from yourself. What more was there to uncover? What truths danced tantalizingly out of reach, waiting to ensnare them all? The crowd buzzed with confusion, whispers rising and falling like waves crashing on a shore. Faces contorted with disbelief as they took in the figure who emerged from the shadows, a woman who had once been an indelible part of the maid's life, but was now a ghost that sent chills racing down her spine. How could she be here? Clara, the maid breathed, as recognition hit her like a punch to the gut. Clara had long since slipped into obscurity, but now her presence pulled an old wound wide open. Clara smirked, an unsettling gleam in her eyes. Surprised to see me? You shouldn't be. I always knew you'd end up right back here, caught in the same net. Why are you doing this? The maid's voice felt small, lost in the mass of animosity that filled the space. What do you want? Not what I want, but what you need, Clara replied, her tone silky yet tainted with a malignant edge. All of this chaos, it's a puzzle. And Rose, she's a piece you didn't even know you were missing. Enough games. Mr. Carlton interjected, stepping closer, muscles taut. You don't belong here. Get away from her. But Clara merely laughed, a sound that chilled the air. You're so attached to your fragile reality, aren't you? But we know it's crumbling. What happens when the facade falls away? Her gaze flicked over to Rose, her expression darkening. Rose whined, Mom. Her voice was a frail plea, racked with fear that cut through the tension thick as fog around them. Suddenly sirens howled from nearby, echoing the turmoil in the room. The backup was closing in, an impending wave that threatened to engulf them all. Forget the sirens, Clara said, waving a dismissive hand. What's truly at stake is much worse than any siren. What if I told you that I could help you uncover the truth about Rose? About everyone who's been manipulating the string of events spiraling out of control? What truth? The maid pressed, heart pounding as anger flared within her again. You're just trying to stir things up. This has nothing to do with you, is it? Clara's gaze smoldered, piercing straight through to the maid's core. Everything you thought you knew is a setup, a distraction to keep you obedient. Rose is the key, and all of us are mere players in a dramatic farce, where lives are exchanged for power and profit. A heavy silence fell. Why should we trust you? Mr. Carlton's voice dripped with suspicion, eyes narrowed. Others murmured in agreement, concern lacing their tones. Each person observed Clara like a viper ready to strike, but the deceit about her purpose made the air heavier. Trust? Clara echoed mockingly. You don't need to trust me. You need to trust your desperation. It's the only thing guiding you now. And I can show you the way out, but you have to choose. The maid's head spun. Was Clara offering a lifeline or another trap? An uneasy alliance felt more dangerous than ever. She looked at Rose, vulnerable and trembling. The weight of her decision sat heavily on her chest. Her loyalty to Rose clashed with her instinct to reject Clara's secrecy. Will you risk it all to uncover what's lurking in the shadows? Clara taunted softly, a smile creeping back on her lips. Or will you watch Rose slip away? Heart racing wildly, the maid faced the familiar ghost before her, wondering if the answer could lead to salvation or doom. In that tense moment, the clouds overhead rumbled ominously, foreshadowing a storm. Was it a warning or the stirrings of fate demanding action? Behind Clara, shadows shifted, hinting at more trouble approaching, and the maid realized the time to act was dwindling. Could she trust Clara, and what price would she pay for the truth? The sirens grew louder, a relentless wail slicing through the charged atmosphere. The cadence pulsed like a heartbeat, demanding attention. The maid's heart raced as she gripped Rose's hand tighter, feeling the child's trembling fingers. Time felt suspended, each second dragging into a haunting eternity as Clara's gaze bored into her. Choose now or lose everything, Clara insisted, her voice low and enticing like shadows wrapping around their bones. The crowd around them shifted uneasily, reflecting the conflicted energy hanging in the air. Wait! The maid shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. What do you want from us? Not from you, for you, Clara replied with an arched brow, her smirk widening. Rose is a treasure, hidden in plain sight. What if I told you there's a way to protect her? To fight back against these puppeteers pulling the strings? Rose stepped closer to the maid, her small body trembling, eyes wide with fear and confusion. What if it's a lie? What if you're just trying to manipulate us? The maid's voice cracked, her words hung like a fragile thread in the chaos. Your fear is a tool, and I can show you how to wield it, Clara said, her tone dropping into a conspiratorial whisper. You know the stakes are higher than this moment. You can't shield Rose from what's coming without knowing the truth. Mr. Carlton scoffed, his face taut with skepticism. The truth? Your truth? Listen to the man. Clara turned, her gaze like ice. He knows as well as I do that you're all in the dark. You've played the game without knowing the rules. You're not in control here, and the longer you stand there squabbling over loyalties, the more vulnerable you make yourselves. The maid felt the heat rising in her chest again, anger fighting with fear. We don't need you to tell us what we already know. We can take care of Rose ourselves. Can you? Clara challenged, stepping closer. The air between them crackled. You think protecting her means hiding her away, but she is the center of a very dangerous game. The players are watching. You must figure out your next move before it's too late. More murmurs surged through the crowd, a swell of uncertainty. Faces turned toward one another, each person weighing Clara's words, reality bending under the pressure of new possibilities. Fear morphed into curiosity. Fingers fidgeted, bodies shifting. A commotion erupted just outside, shattering the tense silence. The doors burst open, light flooding in and silhouetting figures in uniforms. Emergency responders rushed in, demanding everyone to clear the area. Panic rippled through the crowd, a wave of bodies surging backward. "Stay!" Clara shouted over the chaos, eyes now wild. "Don't run. This is what they want." The maid felt herself torn. The crowd shifted away from Clara as if her command had formed an invisible barrier. In that moment the shadows behind Clara darkened, twisting and writhing. A figure stepped forth from the dimness, tall, with an air of authority. He scanned the room with hawk-like precision. "What are you hiding, Clara?" he called out, voice like gravel, as chilling as the wind outside. "Nothing you need to worry about," she shot back, the confidence in her voice shaky, her facade beginning to crumble. Mr. Carlton pushed forward, authority in his stride. "We need to get out of here." Clara, this isn't the time, but the maid didn't move. Instead, she felt a fierce longing to uncover whatever twisted truths Clara harbored. Maybe fate was faltering. Maybe now was the moment to confront everything she had feared. "Wait, what do you know about Rose?" the maid shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. Clara paused, a flicker of something fear crossing her face. "Everything," she whispered, just loud enough to hear as the lights flickered ominously. And then with one final shake, darkness draped the room, plunging them into uncertainty, leaving all eyes pinned on Clara's barely there promise of revelation. What lay beyond the shadow of deception? Was the truth worth the risk? The air hung thick with fear as the lights flickered before plunging them into darkness. Panic surged throughout the crowd, echoing the distant sirens that seemed to swallow the very sound of their hearts beating. It felt like an orchestra playing a disastrous symphony, all at once chaotic yet eerily synchronized. "Clara!" the maid called out, her voice piercing through the fearful murmurs. "You can't just leave us in the dark. What do you know?" Silence fell momentarily, almost expectant. Clara's silhouette was barely visible amidst the gloom, her eyes gleaming with an intensity that ignited a flicker of hope, or was it dread? "Rose, she's not just any child," Clara finally said, her voice softer, tinged with something that resembled concern. "She's a key, a bridge between the hidden world and ours. Protecting her isn't about secrecy. It's about awakening her true potential." "Awakening? What does that even mean?" Mr. Carlton's voice, deep and commanding, cut through the shadows, but uncertainty danced behind his steady facade. "This is madness, Clara. We need to leave." The emergency responders surged closer, their flashlights creating precarious beams of light that sliced through the darkness like daggers. The maid pressed a protective hand against Rose, who was shivering, cheeks pale as moonlight. "Help us," she implored the officers. "We need to get Rose out of here." But they were already scrambling, eyes wide, caught in a whirlwind of panic fueled by Clara's cryptic warning. The maid's heart thudded loudly against her ribs. What was Clara holding back? And why did it feel like they were all teetering on the edge of something vast and perilous? "Listen." Clara's voice rose into the void, powerful and commanding. "If you leave now, you risk losing all control over what's to come. It's not just about Rose. It's about the forces gathering in the shadows around us. They're watching, waiting for you to make a mistake." The sirens wailed even louder, almost drowning out her silent threat, a menacing reminder of an enemy they couldn't see. The crowd, unsettled by the urgency, began to ebb toward the exits, unsure of where to run to. The maid stepped forward, defiance igniting her resolve. "You think this is safe?" she shouted, a surge of courage filling the empty spaces in her chest. "You want us to trust you? Then tell us everything." A moment passed, a hard, agonizing pause before Clara's expression shifted. The predatory gleam faded, unraveling into something almost vulnerable. "Very well," she whispered, the words escaping her lips like a confession. "But be warned, what I tell you will change everything." The shifting breaths of the crowd drew together. A singular inhale of anticipation. There's a group, a powerful network operating from the shadows, Clara explained, her voice intense and slow, like syrup dripping from a spoon. They're interested in Rose because she is marked. It's not her age, it's something deeper, a legacy. An ability she has yet to discover. What do you mean? The maid asked, trying to wrap her mind around Clara's strange words. Some believe she can channel energy, influence thoughts, Clara continued. A deep frown etched across her brow. And others wish to exploit that power. If they find her, they'll seize her. You'd all be powerless against it. The weight of her words settled like a boulder on the maid's chest, echoing the dreadful truth. The emergency responders were distracted, their attention shifting to the commotion in the crowd. And you think we can protect her? Mr. Carlton interrupted, his skepticism still evident in the wavering tone. The only way to ensure her safety and yours is to confront them. Together. And for that, you're going to need me. No. The maid cried out, shaking her head. You're asking us to trust someone we don't even know. The crowd buzzed nervously, weighing Clara's dark promise against their instinct to flee. Confusion swirling like a storm. Do you want to fight back? Or run into the night like prey? Clara shot back, determination sparking like a fire ignited by dry wood. Each glance exchanged held flickers of uncertainty and silent agreement. The maid's heart raced as chaotic thoughts wrestled within her. Was it truly worth standing still, facing the abyss, rather than retreating into safety? As the lights flickered back to life, illuminating their anxious faces, the maid made a choice that would alter their fate forever. Show us, she commanded, the trembling in her voice replaced by a raw strength. Show us what we're up against. Clara's lips curled into a shadow of a smile. Then let the game begin. What secrets would they unearth in the shadows? And could they truly stand united against the gathering darkness that loomed closer than ever? The crowd surged, a tide of desperate faces and gasping breaths, as Clara's words hung heavy in the air. The maid felt the weight of anticipation anchor her in the present, while fear twisted like a knife in her gut. This was it, everything woven into this moment hinged on what came next. Let's go, she said, her voice ringing out like a bell through the noise. Rose needs us. With a determined glance at Mr. Carlton, she took a step forward, her heart racing. He hesitated but quickly followed her lead, his presence a towering reminder that they had a chance at something greater together. In the wake of their resolve, the paramedics continued their preparations, whispering among themselves as the reality of the situation set in. Rose's cries filled the space, pleading for help. Yet the maid could feel a fire igniting within herself. She would not watch a child suffer, not on her watch. Clara, aware of the shift in momentum, nodded approvingly. You've chosen to fight, she said, her tone laced with something akin to admiration. But it won't be easy. You must face the truth head-on. The maid's grip tightened around Rose's mother's hand as they hurried toward the ambulance. What do we need to do? She asked, urgency spilling from every word. We need to move fast, Clara replied, her tone shifting to a more practical cadence. Find a safe place to regroup. Gather your strength and prepare. Prepare for what? Mr. Carlton interjected, his brow furrowed with concern. Prepare to confront the very people who want to take Rose away from you. Those who wish to exploit her gifts. Clara's voice dripped with intensity. The air crackled with tension as the words sunk in. A promise of danger lurking behind every corner as they reached the ambulance. The medic's movements were quick and efficient. We need to get her stable before she can be transported, he instructed, keeping his focus sharp and steady. The maid watched nervously, her heart pounding as Rose whimpered, eyes glistening with fear. Stay strong, she urged softly, brushing Rose's hair back. We're right here. Mr. Carlton stood at the edge, his expression shifting, vulnerability cracking the polished facade he presented to the world. You didn't deserve any of this, he murmured to the maid, guilt lacing his voice. I never understood. It's not about understanding, she shot back, her emotions raw but unwavering. We just have to act. Just then a sharp voice sliced through the air. The stewardess had returned, a sinister smile dancing on her lips, eyes narrowed in malicious glee. You think you can just run away? You have no idea what you're getting into, do you? The crowd recoiled, and Clara stepped protectively in front of the maid and Rose. You don't matter here, she hissed, fierce and resolute. The stewardess grinned, cocking her head as though weighing her options. But I do know my secrets, dear Clara. And remember, players have a way of returning to the game, especially when stakes are high. Enough games. Mr. Carlton's voice thundered, drawing the eyes of everyone around them. If you want Rose, you can't have her. We won't let you take her. As the paramedics hustled about, the tension between them thickened, a heavy cloud hovering. Clara stood firm, casting an imposing shadow over the stewardess. Leave now, she commanded, venom seeping through her words. You're not welcome here. The stewardess narrowed her eyes, a fleeting emotion crossing her face before she turned away, retreating to the throngs of the crowd. You'll regret this, she hissed, her voice barely audible before she melted into obscurity. The atmosphere shifted slightly, the air imbued with a spark of hope. The maid allowed herself a moment of relief as the medics prepared Rose for transport. With the chaos slowly settling, she turned to Clara. What now? Now, Clara answered, her voice steady and composed once more. We adapt, we fight together, and we uncover the deeper layers of truth they wish to keep hidden. But know this. The road ahead will demand sacrifices. Mr. Carlton nodded, his eyes filled with newfound determination. Whatever it takes. We won't back down. The maid took a deep breath, feeling the steel within her resolve solidify further. We won't let them take Rose away from us. We fight for love, for her life. We will prevail. With that, the paramedics loaded Rose onto the stretcher. The maid held her breath, thoughts racing as the ambulance's doors slid shut with a finality that echoed through her being. As they stepped back, she glanced around, the other onlookers murmuring in disbelief and awe. A community poised at the brink of transformation. They all stood at a crossroads, aware of the looming shadows but realizing their combined strength. The journey ahead was uncertain. Challenges awaited, but love would guide them. Together, they took their first steps into the gathering dusk, ready to confront their destinies and uncover the truth no matter the cost. Now is your chance to be part of the action. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss these exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let your voice be heard. And flood the comments section with your theories and reactions about this ending. What will happen to Rose and the maid? Share your thoughts. Also, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Your support matters more than ever. And only true fans understand the importance of being part of this journey together.